PowerPoint slide within this presentation refers to, again, your macrocycles, again giving you a little bit more example of what type of thing would be considered. So this one could be very much for a strength and fitness general kind of athlete here. So you can see here the mesocycle or the macrocycle, sorry, going across, goes from October to October. That's perfectly fine to do that. It is one year in duration. And then you've got the mesocycles here. So of course your period. So of course in this case they've got their off season, then their pre-season starts in Jan. So then their competitions phase doesn't start until kind of middle of March, getting into April. And then of course they'll have a transition phase. Now again, please note that there is flexibility. This would technically be known as an off season. So really his off season goes from September through to kind of January. This is normally the difference when you see this in planning is that this one is an actual rest. So this is just full on from September to early October, not doing any activity, maybe the odd jog. Well, this one is very much the general preparation phase, going into kind of more pre-season and then in-season. You'll notice that this is very much an American terminology because of the use of in-season. Here you can see then the person is divided it down into resistance training and then fitness conditioning emphasis. So almost like strength training or in the gym, and then more kind of CBF anaerobic type work. So if you feel that that's a better way to present your training program, then brilliant. Here you'll notice that there's a general phase. Okay, here just kind of again will be very high volume, low intensity general exercises that are there to promote an early emphasis in that we're back in training. Hypertrophy, again, we've already covered in previous video, would be again similar, high reps, 10, 12 reps, 3-4 sets of that, multiple exercises. Of course, in this case, it would be whole body exercises. And then again, going into strength and then into power, as I previously mentioned in the video prior to this one. Then their in-season maintenance would be strength and power. So again, this is very much related to an Olympic lifter perhaps, okay, where they're just going to maintain that through their reps and sets that they have been acquiring during their pre-season. They would obviously make sure that there's plenty of rest between competitions. Don't really get an idea of how many competitions are taking part in this in-season. Maybe it's one competition, maybe it's several. So again, in your own program, probably be good to notify maybe how many competitions there are actually taking part. Are there main competitions? Are they weekly competitions? So that you would be able to give more emphasis to certain phases. Then again, I quite like the fact that this has separated the two, and so therefore we've got aerobic with more focus. You can see is in higher font or larger font, and anaerobic not necessarily the focus within inside this off season. That's natural. You're never going to get any athlete want to do any sprinting within the first multiple weeks of coming back from complete rest. So therefore, long, slow, continuous type training, maybe some intervals, but some intervals of lower intensity. So remember that volume training is very important during this period. And then of course it then flips and then goes very anaerobic, very short, sharp. Maybe this is where a lot more sprint training will come in, trying to work the anaerobic system. So remember, anaerobic being exercise without the presence of oxygen. So that means this is exercise that is very intense, very sharp, whereby you breathing is not really contributing massively towards the energy production. An example of this would be, your 50-meter sprints, even 100-meter elite 100-meter runners. They are predominantly anaerobic, and that means that the small percentage of the energy used to perform a 100-meter sprint is actually coming from the aerobic system. That we will cover in future topics. And then again, fitness maintenance, however that would be. So you can see this one's a a really quite a general, quite a nice, easy interpretation plan. This is something that you could copy for your work to do this week. A little bit more confusing one would be this one here. This is a lot. You can see this is in Excel. This is one that has been used in the past. You can see it's on international rugby players. So this one is a lot more detailed, and if you feel comfortable, would be something that I would look to try and copy. You can see at the top here, you've got the months going along the top here, so January through to December. You've got the weeks within those. Of course, certain months have maybe more weeks than others, or 4.5 weeks, or whatever it should be. Okay. Then you've got, of course, your main phases of in-season, off-season, pre-season, and in-season again, so you could highlight those. And then, of course, you've got then main competitions. In this case, this is the Six Nations over here, and then you've got another international event over here. So you can see this is adding on top of what I've previously covered in the other periodization plan, where they didn't really cover when were the competition phases. So this person is also, of course, because he's an international rugby player, is also in the Aviva Cup competitions. So again, you've got games that have been starred. So this means it's a fixture. So he's got 4 fixtures within the month of January. He's got other fixtures there. So you could, if you wanted to, you could be really, really experimental. You could go and get a Premier League team. You can go and get a rugby team. You could go online, actually research when their games were, or when their games were going to be. I know they've been cancelled, and really add them into the dates. Okay, so this is a whole week's worth of work. So again, trying to create something that is a lot more functional, a lot more kind of detailed would be fantastic to see. Then you'll notice again, training phase, competition, pre-competition has just been highlighted here, and that goes throughout. And again, this one is, and then it gets down into the real kind of what I love about this program. It's actually got intensity and volume. Now, what they've done is they've literally used 5 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see there. One obviously being low volume and low intensity, 5 being high intensity and high volume, and they're basically merging them. So you can see in their competition, it's kind of normally always a 3 out of 5 in terms of the intensity. Certainly within a game, maybe that might even go up to 4. So you can see that we have this kind of look of what does the intensity look like over time, and you can see here the pre-season. Look at the intensity difference within the specific prep compared to the just general prep. You can see here lower intensity, quite a low volume, low intensity week this week. This week would be known as a tapering week, where maybe the individual is having to try and recover from the previous week of quite a high intensity, high volume. And so you can see that there's this kind of reasoning behind all of the intensity and all the things that they do. Okay, so if I would expect all of you to provide for me this type of thing inside your own detailed design of your periodization. Then peaking is a really good one. So again, he really wants to peak for his Six Nations here. He really wants to peak over here for his international event. Not too sure why he's peaking here, so maybe that's a typo, but because he's got an off season coming up, so it doesn't really make sense. But could be the fact that he's got another season, another game here, but then he's also got games down here, but no peaking. So again, please make sure that your peaking is definitely related to what you're going to be doing, or when they would be doing their activity. Again, the other stuff at the bottom, probably nothing really for you to be concerned too much about. This is just things like evaluations. This is like things that he would put in terms of his notes. Did this go well? Did this not go so well? Were certain players or certain individuals not out for training, out injured, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, progress reports. So these things at the bottom you're not expected to do. So for your homework, your work that you're going to do in class for this week, that is due on Mondays, to design a program, I would expect pretty much you to copy all of these areas from the week number all the way down to your peaking, and plan it in accordance to your sport and athlete of your choice. Okay, the last couple of things here are just some not too long on these, and these are just some examples as well. You can see here a mesocycle, very much focusing on aerobic here. Could be base endurance, steady pace. So this is continuous training. These are intervals. So he's going to do 3 weeks of steady pace, then the following 3 weeks on an interval of faster and slower. So these would be considered to be your kind of month to month. 1 to 3 weeks, 1 to 4 weeks would be a month. And so therefore the mesocycle focusing upon that, then the mesocycle focusing more upon the higher intensity work. So you can see again the natural and I think common sense approach to progressing aerobic training from continuous training into interval, into fartlek, and so on and so forth. The same thing here with the resistance training. You see reps and sets, very general, very kind of high reps, high volume, and then of course making our way down to more functional and lower repping and setting for higher intensities. A couple more things, again some more examples here of a month to month for you. So again, week 1 all the way through to week 6, you can see how this individual has taken on these individual sessions. So within 1 week, that's what he's going to do, these exercises. Can I make it explicitly clear you are not expected to do this? You're only expected to provide the overviews, very similar to this one up the top, not give me individual exercises. We've covered that. You've already been able to provide a warm-up and sessions for me, and I'm happy that you can design those to an adequate standard. Okay. And then the microcycles, week to week. Please make sure you include them in your training program. Again, most microcycles do have the exercises included. However, in this case, the microcycle of 1 week and would be kind of 4 days of training. So day 1, 2, 3, and 4 would make up one microcycle, because that would be 1 week. So this individual, this would be his 1 week microcycle of 4 training sessions. Okay, just some questions for you to have a little go at and trying to help encourage you to think about principles of training and also progressions within inside your program for you to have a little go at doing as well. So that pretty much concludes the video. The next video that will come along will also give you an introduction to the work that I expect you to do in designing your periodization. I will try and get these videos out to you as soon as possible by the end of the day. That gives you most of this week to get your head around listening to these videos, along with making sure that you stay up to date with your work. At the moment for this week, we'll keep it simple. We will keep it just designing your program along with completing all the other tasks that I set in ManageBack. Okay, so please click onto the next video because it goes through your work to do this week for Monday.